What's going on, ladies and gents? It's your boy Yash. Welcome back to the channel. After being highly requested for many months, I finally decided to drop this video, which is how I went from having negative $10,000 in my bank account, yes, being in $10,000 debt, to making $250,000 in sales per month with e-commerce. And if you have been keeping up with my videos on this channel, this is going to be a little bit different rather than my traditional sit-down and educational dropshipping videos. Nonetheless, I thought this would be really cool for all of you aspiring and current entrepreneurs out there, especially in the e-commerce dropshipping and digital marketing game. So with that being said, make sure you guys really pay attention, get some insight, value, and really use this story as an inspiration for your own as well. Again, I can't really tell you what to do or what not to do and what will really work for you or what won't work for you. However, this is my story. This is exactly how I started, actually being in debt along the way, and how I was able to generate multiple six-figure months every single month with e-commerce and digital marketing. As always, make sure you guys drop a huge like on this video. It would really help me out. And if you are new and if you do like what you see and hear by the end of this video, make sure you guys also subscribe to the channel with that post notification bell turned on so you guys are updated with all recent videos. Without any further ado, let's dive straight into it. So my parents actually emigrated to the United States when they were in their early 20s. Obviously, they came here to live the American dream, to actually work really hard and build a foundation for the generations to come, especially myself. So I am an only child. I do not have any siblings, and growing up, all my cousins on both of my parents' side were either really young or really old. While I was in public middle school and growing up, I found out something very interesting about myself, actually something that served as a hindrance for quite a few years. And again, I want to be very transparent and open with you guys as well, because a lot of you guys may or may not have struggles and challenges and roadblocks and hindrances come your way as well, whether they be internal or external. Anywho, so this main struggle or hindrance or whatever you really like to call it I had growing up was stuttering. Now, as a very young child, I did stutter a little bit here and there, but I found it to be more of a prominent issue as I started to interact with more people. And if you guys actually don't know what stuttering or stammering is, it is actually a very common problem, not only amongst kids, but also adults. It essentially really makes it hard to get clear sentences out. It's almost like a speech impairment. Over the years, as I progressed into high school, the stuttering problem was really prominent and apparent as well. Believe it or not, I would really avoid interacting with people, even hanging out with friends or being active in classrooms, because I thought that people would instantly start to make fun of me. And as I grew older and matured, I thought to myself, I'm probably not going to get any career opportunities. I'm probably not going to find a girlfriend or wife, because all these insecurities that stuttering caused really start to get to me. Eventually, I did grow out of the stuttering issue. Honestly, I went to speech therapy. I went to different events and organizations and started to hang out with more people. And I really started to become a little bit more comfortable with myself. Now, I went to a public high school as well, and my high school actually had vocations. The high school was a vocational high school, so students can actually pick an interest such as medical science, graphic design, computer programming, so on and so forth, and actually take specific classes in addition to the regular general classes to learn more about that area or that industry. Now, being a part of a South Asian family or South Asian household, many of you guys may or may not be able to relate. I was always leaning towards going into medicine or healthcare. And yes, I can't lie, my parents did have a little bit of a pressure on me, actually being a doctor or whatever it really may be. So as you may have already guessed it, in high school, I was part of the medical science vocation. Obviously, it wasn't as rigorous, so I honestly did enjoy it. And by the time I graduated high school, I really set my mind on becoming an optometrist. As college began, I was on the pre-medicine track, majoring in exercise science. I remember taking a semester of chemistry and biology. I barely passed with C's and D's. And yes, I did cheat. So that's how you know this really was not for me. In fact, I just really knew myself this was not for me, and I cannot do this for the next 7 to 10 years. That's where I kind of really started thinking, because I always had a passion of tech and computers and business and technology, you know, that always intrigued me, but I really wasn't ever able to fully immerse myself into those topics, into those industries and whatnot, because I was so focused on medicine and healthcare in general. So as the second semester came, what I actually did was started taking pre-business classes because I wanted to apply to the School of Business within my university. Fast forwarding about 2 or 3 semesters, I completed all those requirements, actually got into the School of Business thankfully, but I decided not to accept the offer. And honestly speaking, I'm not sure why I didn't accept the offer of actually going to the business school, but it was just a gut feeling, nothing more. Now, all throughout high school, you know, I started working as young as 16 or 17. I worked at 7-Elevens, I worked in my town city halls, I worked at convenience stores, you know, I swept floors and mopped floors and cleaned toilets and all that stuff. And you know, during college, after I kind of got over the entire pre-medicine phase, after I really knew this is not what I was going to do for the rest of my life, I actually started to apply to internships and co-ops and stuff like that. I actually remember my first internship between sophomore and junior year was at a startup, and this startup, ladies and gents, was actually in a garage, I shit you not. I get to the location and I'm like, where am I? Because it was literally a residential neighborhood. Anyway, I got out of the car and I see the CEO or founder coming out. He's like, welcome aboard. Honestly, that was such a cool experience. It was honestly what you imagine a startup being, like Amazon or Disney or Microsoft, like literally out of a garage. One thing that was actually really cool about this position is right next to where we were sitting in that garage, you know, those 5 or 6 computers that we had working right alongside with the founder of the company, is next to that room there was an entire, I remember there literally being like 70 or 80 snacks. Honestly, probably gained like 15 or 20 pounds that summer. Fast forwarding, I started to apply to more and more positions, campus ambassador jobs and other retail positions, other smaller startup positions and whatnot as well. Honestly, I really enjoyed this. I really, you know, knew there was something more in store. Whoops, okay, well there we go. My camera battery actually died, guys. Forgive me, I apologize. This is a brand new camera, so I'm still getting a little bit more used to it, but drop in the comments down below how you like the quality of this camera. It was finally time to upgrade the quality of the videos on this channel that I do drop, so definitely look forward to more higher quality videos and a lot more vlogs as well. Moving forward, as the semesters went on in my undergraduate years, I really started to keep myself busy, started applying to internships and co-ops and brand ambassador positions. Honestly, I just wanted to keep myself busy and get my bread up. And like I said before, I didn't really accept that offer to the School of Business, so I remember I had like 1 or 2 semesters where I had no idea what I was doing, but I remember I applied to the School of Communication and Information within my university and decided to double major in information technology and informatics. Oh wait, and I also had a minor in economics, so I get that back end and that front end experience no matter where I end up working, whether it be a Fortune 500 company, an investment bank, or a startup. I remember a few short months before my junior year was about to begin in my undergraduate years, I got an offer to work at Johnson & Johnson, also known as J&J, a Fortune 500 company, and the position was in their IT department. And not only was this an internship, which is usually anywhere from 1 to 3 months, at least here in the US, but this was a 6-month-long co-op. A co-op is essentially a position at a company when you are in university or college, where not only do you work in the summer, but you also work during the school years as well, and you get a certain amount of credits after completing that position. So honestly, I was pretty stoked, and this was one of the best positions I probably acquired so far in my undergraduate journey. As the weeks went on at my position at Johnson & Johnson in their IT department, I also realized that my manager and I didn't really get along either. I'm not sure if she was prejudiced or racist or if she had favorites. I'm not sure what it really was. In general, we just didn't really get along too well. And this also had me lose a lot of motivation at work as well. And soon there were only more factors that had me lose even more motivation. So one day I was eating lunch at the cafeteria, and I usually sit with colleagues or coworkers, but for some reason that day I was alone. And if you know me as a person, I mean, if you're really close with me, you know that I don't really watch TV or, episodes or TV series and stuff like that. I'm usually a big YouTube guy. How ironic. So as I was watching YouTube, I came across this ad, and I think this ad was from Kevin David or Mike Vestal. A lot of you guys may or may not know these individuals in the e-commerce space, but anyway, I came across this ad and I was really hooked on. I mean, usually I just skip these ads right away. You guys probably do as well. Don't do it on my video though.
Yeah, boy.
I'm just messing with y'all, but the reason why this individual caught my attention in this YouTube ad was because he said, imagine selling 20 products a day at $20 each. That's $400. And boom, right away, I was hooked on. I mean, he didn't even mention Shopify or dropshipping or AliExpress or none of that. He just said, imagine having an online store, an online business, and selling $400 worth of products every single day. So that same day I did some more research and I discovered Shopify dropshipping. So believe it or not, but after my last meeting at J&J, I stayed in the conference room and literally opened my very first Shopify dropshipping store. As the months went on, I was literally so intrigued in this entire business model. I wanted to give it my all. I was watching YouTube videos and reading forums on Reddit and stuff, and obviously discovered there's an entire community of entrepreneurs doing this full time as young as 17, 18, 19 years old, which I absolutely found astonishing. So now the months are going by and I'm working at Johnson & Johnson probably about 20 or 30 hours a week. I had to cut down from the 40 hours because I was a part-time student at my university and I also had other responsibilities. I was coming home every single weekend to help my parents with their business. I did have a relationship at the time, which I'm not saying was a burden or anything like that at all, but I was still putting time, energy, and effort into it. And I did have a social life because I did go to a state school, so honestly I chose to have a social life, but there were a decent amount of things on my plate that I personally ever handled before. I remember I would wake up at around 6 or 7, go to J&J, come back about 3 or 4, go to classes, half-ass schoolwork, finish up everything, maybe grab something to eat, and then literally start working on my Shopify store, learning more about it and asking people around. And I would probably sleep at like 2 or 3 or even 4 a.m. sometimes and rinse and repeat the entire same thing for months and months and months. Now, eventually this really took a toll on my body. I was getting not enough sleep, maybe 3, 4, 5 hours some nights. How I interacted with people, how I spoke with people, I started being really irrational, and honestly it was just because of my habits in general. I really had no discipline at the time. A lot of my relationships started to suffer as well with friends and family, and more than that, like my performance at J&J really started to decline. I mean, mind you, this was like my dream position. This was almost like my big break. I was getting paid $23 or $24 an hour at that time, which if you ask me is very, very good for someone who is just in their undergraduate years. And honestly, I knew this myself, but guys, I was so hooked on this e-commerce, making money, this location neutral income idea that I started to get more and more deeper into. So one day my manager literally called me into her office, and for some reason I just knew what was going to happen. I knew I was not going to question it, and she ended up terminating me from the program. I didn't have any questions or thoughts or concerns for her at all. I exactly knew, like I said, why she was doing that. I remember driving home that day and I'm like, damn, I really wish I get to look back at this 1, 2, 3, or heck, even 5 or 6 years from today and say like, fuck you, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. And here I am today. So that day I went home and I didn't tell anyone because I was too embarrassed. I mean, I thought to myself, like, what am I gonna do? This is gonna look so bad on my resume and it's gonna stay on my record, yada, yada, yada. You know, I obviously didn't know at that time I was going to do e-commerce or be an entrepreneur or be an online entrepreneur full time. So not only did that happen, I was obviously embarrassed and super bummed about it, but I also ended up blowing about 95% of my salary that I earned at J&J for the past 5 months. And if you ask me, my entire salary was spent on my dropshipping store, me attempting to actually find success, me actually attempting to make some profits, but I didn't end up making anything at all. I remember I would literally used to book a $250 promotion with an Instagram influencer page, maybe get like 2 or 3 sales, sometimes not get any sales at all, and then do it like 5 more times that week just to hope I would get a sale or 2, or heck, be profitable, because that was my goal, obviously. And back then, honestly, guys, there weren't as many resources, especially here on YouTube, about e-commerce and dropshipping. You know, there were maybe a handful of courses, but I didn't really believe in investing into courses, or the stigma that was just around courses was, you know, that they were all just super scammy and weren't really helpful. So I didn't have that, more so that right guidance and that right approach to kind of really what goes into this and how to approach it more so in a step-by-step strategical way. After all that happened, I knew I still wanted to make this work more than ever. So what I did was I asked my father, and he was kind enough to lend me $10,000. Now, some of you guys may be thinking like, oh, you were born into wealth, you were born into affluence, and that is not true at all. I cannot sit here and lie and say that, hey, I was super poor and my parents were unfortunately in that position where they were struggling to pay the bills and stuff. But, you know, my parents built everything up from ground up. You know, my parents, my dad and my mom were getting paid like $2 or $3 an hour when they initially came to this country. So again, I'm not saying I was super poor, but it's not like I was living nowhere near in a mansion and we didn't have like Mercedes and Audis and all these fancy cars when I was growing up either. You know, I was part of a average middle class household. But being an only child, you know, having done this entire co-op, which my parents didn't know I got terminated from, actually doing pretty well in school all my life, you know, he was kind enough to help me and lend me these $10,000 because I told him about it. You know, I told him I was starting this venture and how I really believed in it. And about 4.5 months went by, guys, and guess what? I blew it all. Literally on marketing, because when it comes to e-commerce, that's about 80 to 90% of your expense. So I blew most of that on Facebook ads. I also got scammed of maybe like $3,000 or $4,000 on, you know, fake gurus and these different programs that weren't promising and stuff at all. I mean, I was really naive and didn't really do my due diligence and my research beyond any of these things. So half of that was just basically gone, and the other half, like I said, I just blew on marketing, on Facebook ads, on influencer promotions that didn't work, and, you know, I try to book them over and over again and whatnot. So you know, as that semester was ending, as I was actually going into my senior year, I knew I had to take a step back to take 10 steps forward, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I tell my clients all the time, take a step back to take 10 steps forward, or even a few steps forward. There's absolutely zero wrong with that, ladies and gents. And that is when I actually invested into a mentor. And my mentor was kind enough to actually have me not pay him up front and teach me for free for at least a few months till I made some profit, and then I actually went ahead and paid him back. My mentor and I are super close and we're actually business partners right now. But that is when things really changed for me, and that is when I got to my first $1,000 per day in revenue. And I remember I was at my apartment senior year and I saw that 1K screenshot on my phone, literally told all my roommates, sent a screenshot to my other closest friends and my family members, and I was super excited. And that is when I really knew I did something here and this shit actually freaking works. So what I did for the remaining of my senior year is I really buckled the fuck down. I didn't work anywhere else after that J&J position, right? I kind of just told myself, I had enough experience, even if this stuff doesn't work, I would still have that backbone. My resume was pretty poppin', it was solid. And, I really just built off of that, literally step by step by step. And I really built that discipline. And eventually, I paid my dad back, which was so stressful because every day I would literally just look at the balance. I had this little notes on my phone how much I had to pay my dad back. I started to save a lot of money and started to not go to bars and events and restaurants and stuff. And I really put a lot of my time, budget, and energy into e-commerce, into dropshipping. And yeah, eventually I paid him off. Probably midway into my senior year, I really worked hard, and that's when I started from zero and worked up from there. Getting closer to senior year, I probably hit like my first $100,000 month, which was super exciting through Facebook ads and also through Instagram influencer marketing, which are now my two main bread and butter in terms of driving traffic to my dropshipping stores. Honestly, the last 2 or 3 months, I was really close to dropping out of school, but I didn't. Honestly, I can't even lie. I used to outsource so much of my work and assignments. I don't recommend doing that, by the way, but I did what I had to do. So, I outsourced a lot of that. I almost finessed my way around the last few months of senior year, but I was making decent money and I knew this was what I wanted to do. Maybe I'd be making not as much consistent income as someone who has a job per se initially, but I knew that I was making a decent amount of money per month, and this is what I wanted to do full time, no matter what. So I convinced myself, I had that talk to my parents, and yeah. Before that summer started, I also ventured into having and owning an SMMA, a social media marketing agency. I initially started to work with realtors and mortgage brokers and, serve them through, offering them lead generation services. Soon just realized that wasn't my pond to really fish in. So I kind of really took a step back and, niche down to e-commerce, actually serving small and medium-sized e-commerce businesses. And that's what my agency, Straight Line Media, focuses on right now. I have a team of 5, which I'm very blessed and fortunate to actually have on board. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. All the media buying and everything else is handled by them. All I really do is, the sales calls and the client onboarding and whatnot. So that's been super rewarding because I kind of thought to myself, if I'm able to drive these results to my own e-commerce stores and whatnot, why not do the same for other businesses and also help them out? So, kind of piggybacking off of that, I really started to work with other individuals and other businesses. And that's how I kind of got into consulting and coaching and mentorships, and eventually started my personal brand, on YouTube especially, and, started to serve and help other people. Eventually in the future, I do want to host masterminds and events and be a part of panels and actually have my own group of panelists and whatnot as well. So, it's all been kind of an ecosystem around e-commerce, around digital marketing, and that is exactly where I am right now. Now, I don't want to make this whole thing into a movie. It probably is already super long, so I do apologize for it. If you did make it till this point in the video, I really do appreciate it. But honestly, guys, this stuff is not easy. I will say that very bluntly. Whether it be e-commerce or any business in general, I think my main flaw or drawback was not being patient, not actually treating this like a real business, And that's why most people honestly fail. Like 95% of individuals close their Shopify accounts. I forgot the exact statistic, like in the first 35 or 65 days, something like that. But you have to be patient, and you also have to make sure you're investing your time, money, and energy as efficiently as possible from the get-go, so you don't fall into a huge pit like how I did before. Because once you get into that pit, it's very easy to actually go ahead and give up. Being $10,000 in debt is not easy at all. It's not fun. On top of that, I was also paying, quarterly and monthly for my rent at my apartment, and also for my tuition as well. Obviously, I took out a few loans. Now it's all paid off because I had the cash flow, I had the capital already built up. But it's a place where you absolutely do not want to be at, ladies and gents. There's also more resources out there right now, which can be a double-edged sword. Obviously, be careful where you put your attention towards and who you actually trust. It can be a win-lose, a lose-win situation depending on who you're watching or who you're working with. So obviously be very careful. But I think the number one, or probably two biggest takeaways I can probably give you guys is literally, guys, like, you have to want it as much as you want to breathe. And that's what my mentor told me. And that doesn't mean like torturing yourself to the point where you're like not taking care of yourself and stuff. It's a lot about balance, obviously, but it's about being persistent. I guess there's a few pillars about wanting it as much as you want to breathe, right? Like being really persistent, committed, focused, and disciplined. Like discipline is probably the most important pillar. You and I could be multi-billionaires right now probably, but why aren't we? It's because we lack discipline, and that's the sole truth about that. The other thing is be patient. Like they say, it's probably very cliche. Like if you've probably ever heard Gary Vee say this, but be in love with the freaking process. Love it. Learn to love how to lose. Learn to love being comfortable. Wait, I said that wrong. Sorry guys, it's super late here, but what I meant to say is learn to love being comfortable with being super uncomfortable. And that is, ladies and gentlemen, how I got into e-commerce, how I got into digital marketing, entrepreneurship, building and scaling multiple seven-figure stores, actually owning and operating a consulting company, a marketing agency, and actually being a part of the laptop lifestyle, right? Like my main goal is being able to be a digital nomad, especially when I'm young and when I'm not married and stuff like that. Having as less baggage as possible and being a digital nomad, I think is probably one of the coolest things ever. For me personally, success is having the freedom of time, right? And location, because especially time is very finite. So I think being able to travel anywhere and open up my computer and still generate income, even passively when I'm sleeping, is really what I want, and that's kind of what I realized even a few months after I graduated. I just really found it to be so rewarding. And that's just personally the lifestyle that I want to live, at least for now, being able to travel and see the world and, not being told what to do by anyone else. And I think it's more so not how much you make. Obviously, money is super important. I look at money as a tool. It can't really directly make you happy, but the things you may be able to do with money, the things that you may be able to fulfill and whatnot, that may bring you happiness. But it's more just so how you leverage money, right? Like the first, probably hardest to make is your first $100,000. I won't lie about that. So what I'm really saying here, guys, is don't be too focused on the money. Learn to kind of really be in love with the process, and you have to have a passion for whatever your venture is. Like in my case, you have to love e-commerce, right? Like you have to learn copywriting and finding products and learning human behavior and customer psychology. I mean, you have to literally love it. And the best thing I can say is do whatever brings the best version out of you and whatever really fulfills you at the end of the day, and you will be happy and you will make a lot of money if that is your goal. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Not saying a 9 to 5 absolutely sucks and screw people who work a 9 to 5, but if you are someone who wants to get into e-commerce, who wants to get into drop shipping, definitely check out all the resources and tools down in the description below. They can and will be very much helpful, especially if you guys are beginners or haven't even opened your first dropshipping store and are thinking of doing so. With that being said, if you do have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, feel free to drop them in the comments down below, ladies and gentlemen, because I do reply to each and every single one of them. I know this video was a little bit different in terms of being raw and uncut, but this is how I wanted it to be. So I'm going to go ahead and attempt more of these types of videos where I'm just sitting down and talking with you guys almost one-on-one, especially on this new camera right here. So once again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed, and with that being said, your boy's out. Till the next one. Peace.